Modern humans walked the Earth for roughly 300,000 years. That feels like an eternity, until you compare it to the dinosaurs, who maintained absolute control over the planet for over 164 million years. Because our recorded history is short, we tend to view Earth as a permanently stable home. But the deep geological record reveals a violently unpredictable environment, turning on its inhabitants without warning. This chart tracks the population of global life over the last 500 million years. Notice these 5 plunging drops. These are the Big 5 mass extinctions, events so devastating they wiped out up to 96% of all living species at the time. It is easy to look at these massive losses of life as purely tragic, yet the destruction of the dominant species in each era cleared the board, allowing entirely new evolutionary branches the space and resources they needed to survive. Earth's history operates on an endless cycle. Long periods of biological equilibrium are followed by violent disruption, leaving massive ecological power vacuums waiting to be filled. Take the Ordovician period, about 444 million years ago. The land was completely barren. No trees, no plants, no animals. But beneath the surface, warm, shallow coastal seas were packed with life. These waters were teeming with early marine organisms, like trilobites, and hard-shelled filter feeders known as brachiopods, which left behind fossils exactly like this one. The climate suddenly turned against them. As the giant supercontinent of Gondwana drifted directly over the South Pole, falling snow failed to melt. It quickly compressed into massive glaciers, reflecting sunlight and plunging the Earth into a runaway ice age. With so much of the ocean's waters suddenly locked up in solid ice, coastlines retreated dramatically. The shallow marine habitats vanished, eliminating 85% of all ocean species in our planet's first major reset. Life eventually adapted. Fast forward to the late Devonian period, 360 million years ago. Life recovered in the water and on land. The very first true forests exploded across the continents. These new trees developed deep, complex root systems. They expanded downward, shattering the bedrock and churning up the soil. This allowed unprecedented amounts of raw nutrients to wash down rivers and empty straight into the oceans. This sudden influx of organic matter fed immense algae blooms. As the algae decayed, it stripped the ocean of oxygen, suffocating roughly 75% of marine species inside massive underwater dead zones. The massive biological success of land-based forests directly created a toxic environment that nearly murdered the ocean. 250 million years ago, during the Permian period, the land masses collided to form the supercontinent Pangaea. The land was crawling with heavy, saber-toothed apex predators. Then, the Earth's crust in what is now Siberia tore open. Enormous volcanic fissures erupted continuously, pumping massive amounts of methane and toxic gas into the atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years. Trapped greenhouse gases baked the planet, raising global temperatures by up to 10 degrees Celsius. Ecosystems entirely collapsed, killing 96% of marine life and 70% of land vertebrates. Yet, out of that near-total sterilization came the Triassic recovery. Life diversified rapidly, filling the empty oceans with massive dolphin-like marine reptiles, like the fearsome ichthyosaur, preserved perfectly in this fossil. But another massive volcanic event, triggered when Pangaea violently tore apart, starved the oceans of oxygen once again. The fourth planetary reset wiped out 75% of all living species. With the dominant Triassic predators completely wiped out, a vast ecological void opened up on land. A relatively small, non-dominant group of reptiles stepped into that exact void. We call them the dinosaurs. By the peak of the Cretaceous period, 66 million years ago, those once small reptiles had grown to unimaginable proportions. As many as 10,000 distinct dinosaur species had adapted perfectly to conquer every forest, plain, and coastal environment. They evolved into towering herbivores and incredibly massive carnivores. They ruled the era with absolute dominance, facing entirely no natural competition. That reign ended when a massive asteroid, brighter than the sun, slammed into the Earth right over the coastline of what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The immediate impact hit with the force of billions of atomic bombs. It sent a massive, mile-high tsunami racing across the ocean. and triggered magnitude 11 earthquakes that vaporized everything nearby. But the long-term killer was the dust. A dense cloud of vaporized debris shot into the stratosphere, shrouding the planet in darkness for up to a decade. Without sunlight, photosynthesis stopped entirely, and the food chain collapsed from the bottom up. The asteroid wiped out 75% of life. It didn't matter how large, strong, or heavily armored a species was. Even the formidable Triceratops starved to death. The only animals that survived the long, dark winter were small, highly adaptable creatures that required very little food and could hide out of sight. Among those survivors were early mammals. For millions of years, they had scurried in the background, outcompeted by the heavy reptiles. Now, with the apex predators gone, the planet was finally open. If Gondwana hadn't frozen, if trees hadn't choked the seas, or if that asteroid had missed the Earth entirely, the dominant ecosystems would never have been cleared away. Humanity's existence relies entirely on those brutal planetary catastrophes to wipe out the old guard and make room for us.